Bangladesh and Myanmar announced last week that they had signed a memorandum of agreement to begin the repatriation of more than 620,000 Rohingya refugees who have fled to Bangladesh in the past few months. Will this agreement be the solution for the humanitarian crisis of Myanmar termed as ethnic cleansing by the United Nations? This is a question we are going to address. Stay tuned. But first, let's see what had led to this crisis. Since August, when the Myanmar military began a crackdown on Rohingya villages in Rakhine after a series of terror strikes on army camps by Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army or ARSA, the numbers that have escaped burning homes and alleged atrocities by the authorities have risen rapidly, with the most seeking shelter across the border camps of Bangladesh. The UN has condemned the violence as an act of ethnic cleansing and genocide, putting pressure on Myanmar's leadership to end it. Now, what does this agreement say? According to the agreement, a joint working group including officials from Bangladesh, Myanmar and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees will be set up, and Myanmar would begin to repatriate the refugees by January 23, 2018. But what sets this agreement apart is that talks between Bangladesh and Myanmar appear to have been not guided by some international agency, but by China. This is to be noted as India and China, the two Asian giants, supported the Myanmar government initially as they feared that terrorism would spill over to parts of Rakhine where they have invested heavily, and eventually into their respective territories. Apart from this, Myanmar is also key to India's Act East policy and China's Belt and Road Initiative. Then why is China interested now? Beijing has deep interest in Rakhine, especially in the Kyakpu port, with oil and energy pipelines to Yunnan province forming part of a $10 billion economic zone in its Belt and Road Initiative, which is an attempt by it to create commercial assets for themselves in Myanmar, unlike India, which wants to create public assets and hand it over to local authorities of Myanmar. Finally, what is Myanmar's stand? The signing came as a surprise to many because the Myanmar government, led by the National League for Democracy as well as its military leadership, have thus far been categorical about not accepting more repatriation and have denied any wrongdoing by the security forces. The turnaround may be ascribed in part to growing international pressure as well as United Nations resolutions, particularly pushed by Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. In September, the Human Rights Council in Geneva voted to extend the mandate of an international fact-finding committee to investigate all allegations of human rights violations in Myanmar, and the UN General Assembly's Third Committee voted overwhelmingly in condemning Myanmar's actions. International human rights agencies have also called for targeted sanctions and an arms embargo against the Myanmar security forces. The signing of the deal also came at a time when Myanmar's leader Aung San Suu Kyi faced international criticism for not stopping the violence, and several awards and honors given to her for her work in restoring democracy have been revoked over the past month. According to the deal, Myanmar had committed not to delay sending those repatriated back to their original homes, but this task will be made more difficult by the fact that many of the Rohingya villages have been burned down. Also of concern is the stipulation that those who will be accepted by Myanmar must show them Myanmar-issued identity cards, not just their Bangladesh-issued refugee cards. Finally, international human rights agencies have warned that refugees cannot be forced to return while threat of violence against them persists. So, The problems that lie ahead are more complex than what is addressed in the agreement, which requires not just political will but also active people's participation. We hope that this piece of information has positively contributed to your knowledge base. Please do like and share this video and do subscribe to grasp more.